The great conquest begins. The stars above Earth flickered with the light of distant worlds, and in the vastness of space, an ancient empire prepared for something monumental. The Galactic Empire, with its unmatched power and technology, had conquered many worlds across the universe. No species had ever stood in their way for long. They had wiped out civilizations, crushed entire planets, and expanded their dominion without mercy. It was their destiny to rule. But Earth was different. From the cold depths of space, the fleet of the Galactic Empire approached the blue and green planet, unaware that they were about to face a force unlike anything they had encountered before. They had studied Earth, watched it from afar for centuries. They knew the planet's population was small compared to the many other worlds they had conquered. Earth had no advanced technology, no grand fleets, no allies. It seemed like an easy target, but the Empire underestimated Earth in a way no one could have predicted. The Imperial fleet was enormous, a collection of warships that could easily destroy any planet they set their sights on. Their ships were massive, their weapons powerful. They had crushed empires and left no survivors. Now their eyes were locked on Earth. They were certain the planet would fall under their control quickly. On Earth, however, life went on as usual. People were living their everyday lives, unaware of the impending threat. The skies were clear, the oceans vast, and the land as beautiful as ever. But deep within Earth's governments and military leaders, a quiet preparation was underway. The humans were not blind to the galaxy's movements. Earth had its eyes on the stars, watching the Empire's conquests as the galactic war machine swept through space. The humans had always been curious, exploring new technologies, studying the universe around them. But most importantly, Earth was not a passive player. Humanity had spent years preparing, quietly developing technologies and strategies, just in case the Empire ever turned its eyes on their planet. As the first Imperial ships entered the solar system, the humans finally understood the true scope of the threat. A chill ran down the spine of Earth's leaders, but they refused to panic. They knew the enemy was coming, but they also knew something the invaders did not. The humans had been preparing for this moment their entire history. They had seen the rise of the Empire's power, and though they seemed small in comparison, Earth had a history of resilience and survival. With great anticipation, the human military made their final preparations. Unbeknownst to the Empire, Earth's military had secretly developed new technologies, far beyond what the invaders expected. Some of these advancements had been kept hidden from the rest of the galaxy, locked away in secret research facilities. Earth was ready, but not in the way the Empire expected. As the Imperial fleet drew closer to Earth, the invaders were confident in their superiority. They watched as Earth's defenses remained silent, almost as if the planet had no idea what was coming. But behind closed doors, humanity's leaders were gathering their forces. Their fleet, small by galactic standards, was well equipped with the latest in human ingenuity. The first sign of Earth's response came with the sudden appearance of several human ships from the shadows of the moon. These ships were different from anything the Empire had seen before. Smaller, faster, and equipped with weapons that didn't match the usual standards of galactic warfare. But the humans were ready. They had designed these ships for one purpose: to defend Earth at all costs. The Empire fleet watched in surprise as the human ships fired their first shots. It wasn't much, just a few warning blasts, but it was enough to get the Empire's attention. The invaders had assumed Earth's defenses would be laughable. Instead, they were facing a challenge they hadn't predicted. The human ships, though small in number, moved with precision and purpose. They didn't fight like the other species the Empire had crushed. They fought with a mix of strategy, intelligence, and desperation. The first skirmishes between the two fleets sent ripples of surprise through the Imperial ranks. The humans were tougher than they thought. In the Empire's command ship, the general overseeing the conquest began to feel uneasy. The humans weren't retreating. They weren't begging for mercy. They were fighting back, using tactics that seemed unpredictable and highly effective. For the first time in the Empire's long history, They were facing resistance they hadn't expected. What the invaders didn't know was that Earth had an advantage that no one else had. Humanity's greatest strength lay in its creativity and adaptability. No matter how strong an enemy was, Earth's people had a way of turning the tide. And this time, they were not going to surrender without a fight. As the fleet of the Galactic Empire moved closer to Earth's atmosphere, the humans braced themselves for the real battle ahead. They had no idea how long they could hold out, but they knew one thing for sure: they would not go down easily. The Empire, with all its might, was about to learn a valuable lesson. Underestimating Earth was a mistake. The true power of humanity had only just begun to reveal itself. And this would not be a conquest like the others. The war for Earth was only starting, and both sides were about to find out what kind of power lay within the hearts of the humans. The storm was coming, and the Empire had no idea how much Earth was willing to fight back. The first encounter. The Empire's fleet was huge, its ships stretching across space like a dark shadow. Their guns fired with precision, their engines powerful enough to tear through any resistance. They had conquered planets across the galaxy with ease, but nothing could prepare them for the shock they were about to experience. Earth, a planet they thought of as weak and unimportant, was about to challenge their power in a way they never imagined. The first clash came without warning. The human ship that had dared to fire on an Imperial destroyer, the Phoenix, moved like a ghost in the vastness of space. It wasn't large, but it was fast, almost too fast for the Empire's sensors to track. The Empire's commanders were caught off guard. They had underestimated the humans, thinking their technology would be no match for the might of the Empire. But here was evidence that they were wrong. The Phoenix launched a second barrage, striking the heart of the Imperial destroyer. The energy blasts were precise, tearing through the enemy's shields with ease. The destroyer shook, its hull groaning under the weight of the attack. The ship's captain, a hardened veteran of many battles, stared in disbelief at the readouts on his screen. This was no ordinary human ship. It was something new, something powerful. "Return fire," he ordered, his voice sharp. The destroyer's guns blazed, sending beams of energy at the Phoenix. But the human ship was already moving, dodging, and weaving like a skilled predator. It was clear the humans had studied their enemies. They knew how to fight, how to exploit every weakness in their attackers. The Phoenix wasn't just dodging the blasts, it was using the Empire's own strategy against them. Meanwhile, the rest of the Imperial fleet began to move into position. They couldn't afford to let this one human ship stall their invasion. More ships, including battle cruisers and destroyers, surged forward. Each one fired volleys of energy blasts at the Phoenix, hoping to overwhelm it with sheer firepower. But the humans were ready. They had spent years preparing for this moment. Suddenly, the Phoenix dove straight into the heart of the Imperial fleet, using its superior speed to weave between massive warships, launching quick strikes as it passed. The Empire's ships, massive and slow, were unable to keep up. The human ship moved like a dart, its energy cannons firing in rapid succession. The Empire was stunned. They had expected a quick victory, an easy conquest of a primitive world. But the humans weren't going down without a fight. This wasn't the easy win the Empire had hoped for. As the battle raged on, the Empire realized something. Earth was not what it seemed. It was a planet full of surprises. The Phoenix wasn't the only ship humanity had in its arsenal. As more of the human fleet joined the fight, the Empire's surprise only grew. Human ships emerged from Earth's atmosphere, moving in tight formations, striking with deadly precision. The humans had learned to fight with speed and agility, and they were making it count. At the heart of the Empire's fleet, their flagship, the dreadnought Leviathan, loomed. It was the largest and most powerful ship in the galaxy, capable of obliterating entire planets with a single strike. Its weapons were designed to tear through anything in its path, and its shields were practically impenetrable. The Emperor himself was aboard, watching the battle unfold on the massive viewing screens. He had been calm at first, confident that victory was inevitable. But as he saw the human fleet moving with such skill, his confidence began to waver. On board the Phoenix, the humans weren't backing down either. Captain Jace Carter, a brilliant strategist and the leader of the human forces, was at the helm. His mind raced as he directed the fleet, every decision crucial to their survival. He knew that they couldn't defeat the Empire with sheer force alone. They would have to outsmart them. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Carter muttered under his breath. "Target their weak points. Focus on their engines and communication arrays. If we can cripple their command, the rest of their fleet will fall apart." His officers worked quickly, following his commands with precision. They had trained for this moment, and now it was time to put their skills to the test. As the battle raged, one thing became clear: the humans weren't just fighting to defend their planet. They were fighting for their survival. The Empire's fleet, with its vast numbers and overwhelming firepower, had underestimated the humans' resolve. Earth's defenders weren't willing to let their world fall into the hands of an invader. They had something that the Empire didn't: determination. The battle continued to unfold in space, and with every passing minute, the humans held their ground. The Phoenix darted between enemy ships, its energy blasts lighting up the void of space. The Imperial fleet, while vast and powerful, was beginning to show signs of strain. The human ships were too fast, too unpredictable. As the battle reached a fever pitch, the Emperor knew something had to change. The humans had not only fought back, they had fought smarter. But the Emperor was not one to give up easily. He had one last card to play: the Leviathan, the ultimate weapon. With its immense power, it could break through the human defenses and crush their fleet. But as the Leviathan moved into position, something unexpected happened. The humans had prepared for this. Their ships began to swarm the massive battleship, working together to launch a coordinated assault. The Leviathan, though powerful, was slow and vulnerable in the face of such a well-coordinated attack. The first clash between the Empire's might and Earth's resolve had set the stage for a conflict unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire's fleet, once invincible, was now on the defensive, and the humans were just getting started. The tides began to turn. The battle between the human fleet and the Empire had reached a crucial turning point. The Phoenix, alongside the smaller human ships, continued to outmaneuver the enormous Empire warships. What had once been a fight where the Empire assumed victory was now becoming a desperate struggle for dominance. On board the Leviathan, the Emperor paced back and forth in the command center. His face, once full of confidence, now showed signs of irritation. The humans had managed to hold their own far longer than he anticipated. His fleet, though vast, had not been able to crush the human resistance. Instead, the humans were becoming more organized, more coordinated with each passing moment. "Deploy the shadow drones," the Emperor barked. "We need to flush them out of their hiding spots. The humans won't be able to keep dodging forever." As the Emperor gave his orders, massive dark ships, shadow drones, launched from the Leviathan. These ships were small, nearly invisible in the vastness of space, designed to hunt down and destroy anything that moved. Their cloaking technology made them perfect for rooting out enemy ships, and now they were on the hunt for the humans. But Captain Jace Carter, aboard the Phoenix, was already several steps ahead. His officers had spotted the launch of the shadow drones, and their evasive actions kicked into high gear. Carter knew they couldn't allow the Empire to get the upper hand by using stealth tactics. His mind worked quickly, and he ordered his fleet to move into an unpredictable pattern. "Prepare the decoys," he said to his crew. "We need to confuse their sensors. The drones won't know where to strike." The human fleet deployed a series of advanced holographic decoys, mimicking the appearance of their ships in the cold void of space. Each decoy was programmed to emit false signals, confusing the shadow drones into attacking the wrong targets. As the drones began to chase after the decoys, the real human ships continued their attack on the Empire's vulnerable areas. The Leviathan, a symbol of the Empire's strength, was beginning to show signs of strain. The coordinated strikes from the human fleet were having an impact. The once impenetrable shield of the Empire flagship had begun to flicker, as if it were struggling to maintain its power. Captain Carter was not about to let up. "Focus on their engines. We need to stop them from retreating," he ordered. The Phoenix, along with the rest of the human fleet, now targeted the Leviathan's engine thrusters. They needed to cripple the Leviathan's mobility. If they could do that, they might be able to prevent the Empire from regrouping. The attack was effective. Energy blasts from the Phoenix and its allies hit the Leviathan's thrusters, sending shockwaves through the flagship. A loud hum vibrated through the space as the Leviathan's engines sputtered, their power fading. The once mighty flagship was now limping through space, unable to escape or keep up with the fast-moving human fleet. In the Empire's command center, panic began to set in. Officers scrambled to try and reroute power to the damaged systems, but the Leviathan was suffering. It had been built to withstand massive amounts of damage, but it wasn't invulnerable. The humans had found the weak spots, and they were exploiting them. "We need to retreat," one of the senior commanders said, fear creeping into his voice. "The Leviathan is not going to hold up much longer. We have to withdraw before we lose it." The Emperor, furious, slammed his fist on the console in front of him. He could not afford to lose the Leviathan. It was the heart of his fleet, the key to his domination of the galaxy. If he lost it, the entire Empire would begin to crumble. He had underestimated the humans, and now they were on the verge of turning the tide of the battle. "No retreat," the Emperor growled. "Send in the Iron Fist Battalion. We will crush them now, once and for all." The Iron Fist Battalion was one of the Empire's most feared military units. Clad in heavily armored exosuits, these soldiers were nearly invincible in battle. They were sent in to deal with situations where conventional tactics had failed, and they had never been defeated. The Emperor believed that their might would be enough to finally break the human resistance. As the Iron Fist Battalion deployed, Captain Carter's eyes narrowed. He knew that the Empire was desperate. They had sent in their best, but he had one advantage. The humans were fighting for something more than just victory. They were fighting for their home. "We don't give up," Carter said firmly. "Not now. Not ever." The battle was now in full swing, with the human fleet fighting fiercely against the Iron Fist Battalion. But the humans had something the Empire did not: the will to fight for their survival. Every ship, every soldier, fought with an intensity that the Empire had never seen. The humans had no intention of backing down. Despite the Empire's overwhelming numbers, despite their advanced technology, Earth's defenders held their ground. With every passing minute, the humans pushed harder, exploiting every weakness, finding new strategies to outsmart their attackers. The tide of battle was shifting, and it was becoming clearer by the second. Earth was not going to fall. In the cold darkness of space, the battle raged on, and the fate of the galaxy rested on the outcome. Would the Empire's might prove unstoppable, or would Earth's defenders rewrite the rules of the game? The answer, as always, would depend on who had the strength to fight to the very end. The unseen weapon. The battle was reaching a fever pitch. The Empire's Iron Fist Battalion had made its appearance, and the human fleet was caught in a brutal exchange of fire with them. These soldiers, known for their unmatched strength and nearly indestructible exosuits, were a terror to anyone who faced them. The human ships were nimble, but they couldn't match the raw power of the Iron Fist in direct combat. Captain Jace Carter, however, had anticipated this moment. He knew that the Empire's soldiers were the deadliest force the galaxy had ever seen, and he had a plan. The Phoenix had a secret weapon, an experimental technology that was kept under wraps even from some of Carter's own crew. This weapon, known only as the Tiebreaker, was humanity's last hope to turn the tide of the battle. Deep within the Phoenix's hull, Chief Engineer Lena Grayson worked in a near panic. She had been given the unenviable task of activating the Tiebreaker in the middle of a full-scale war. The technology was still in its experimental stages, and no one, not even the highest-ranking officers, knew what its full potential was, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Lena's fingers flew across the console, adjusting the power settings to ensure the tidebreaker would function properly. A strange hum filled the room as the experimental technology began to activate, sending pulses of energy throughout the Phoenix. The weapon wasn't designed for destruction. It was designed to disrupt, to destabilize, to break the very foundation of the Empire's power. Above, the Phoenix rocked under the weight of battle, but Carter was watching his screen, waiting. He knew that once the tidebreaker was activated, the battle would change. The Empire had relied too heavily on their brute force, but that was about to become their downfall. "Ready when you are, Captain." Lena's voice crackled through the comms. There was a note of unease in her voice, but Carter could tell she was resolute. He gave a sharp nod. "Activated." At once, a pulse of energy surged from the Phoenix's core. The energy waves shot out in every direction, but its primary target was the Leviathan, the flagship of the Empire. The pulse crashed into the Leviathan's shields, the impact creating a shockwave that rippled through the fabric of space itself. The Leviathan's shields flickered, then sputtered out. The Iron Fist Battalion, still engaged in combat with the human ships, found their exosuits malfunctioning. The advanced systems that powered their armor began to short-circuit, sending them crashing to the ground. What was once a seemingly unstoppable force had become vulnerable, unable to function as it had before. The humans on the Phoenix could hardly believe their eyes. The tidebreaker had worked. The Empire's technological advantage had been neutralized in an instant. "Now's our chance," Carter shouted. "All ships, focus on the Leviathan. Hit it hard now while it's vulnerable." The human fleet rallied, their spirits lifted by the sudden turn of events. Their momentum surged as they took advantage of the Leviathan's weakened state. The Phoenix led the charge, delivering calculated strikes against the flagship's now exposed weak points. But even in the face of adversity, the Empire was not one to give up easily. The Emperor, enraged by the sudden turn of events, issued new orders to his officers. "Reinforce the Leviathan," he barked. "Bring in the Aegis-class defense drones. We can't afford to lose this ship." From the Leviathan's hangars, waves of Aegis-class defense drones shot out into space, their purpose clear: protect the flagship at all costs. These drones were smaller and faster than the Shadow drones, designed to intercept enemy fire and shield the Leviathan's core systems from further damage. They were the Empire's last line of defense. But Captain Carter wasn't done yet. He knew the tidebreaker had only given them a temporary advantage. To truly turn the battle, they needed to press harder, exploit every weakness, and keep the Empire off balance. "Prepare the secondary weapon systems," he ordered. "We're going to need everything. We have to finish this." The human fleet closed in, with the Phoenix at the center. As they approached the Leviathan, the Aegis-class defense drones surged forward, their blasters firing in rapid succession. The human ships responded with evasive maneuvers, twisting and turning to avoid the blasts. But the humans had one thing the Empire did not: creativity. As the drones descended on their position, the humans deployed another surprise: a cloud of nanite disruptors. These microscopic machines clouded the sensors of the Aegis-class drones, rendering their defense systems ineffective. The Empire's last line of defense was disarmed, leaving the Leviathan vulnerable once more. With the drones neutralized and the flagship open to attack, Captain Carter gave the final command: "Full power to the forward cannons. Fire." The human fleet launched a devastating assault on the Leviathan, their combined firepower focusing all at once on the heart of the Empire's flagship. The shields crumpled under the barrage, and the Leviathan's hull began to crack. The Empire's flagship, once a symbol of their invincibility, was finally faltering. And in that moment, the humans knew they had a real chance of winning. The battle wasn't over yet, but the Empire had been rocked to its core. They had underestimated the humans, but now, the galaxy's fate was being written by Earth's defenders. The humans had not only stood their ground, they had turned the very tide of battle in their favor. The Empire's reign of terror was beginning to crack, and the humans were proving that they would never back down, no matter the odds. The Empire strikes back. The battle had taken a dramatic turn. The Empire's Leviathan, the flagship of their fleet, was reeling from the unexpected assault. The pulse from the tiebreaker had turned the tide in the humans' favor, but the Empire was far from defeated. They were dangerous, relentless, and ruthless in their quest for domination. And now, they would show the galaxy just how deep their resolve ran. Captain Jace Carter stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, watching the unfolding battle with steely determination. His fleet had gained ground, but the Empire wasn't going to go down without a fight. They had regrouped, reinforced their ranks, and were now preparing for a counterattack. Captain, Lieutenant Emma Shaw, the communications officer, said urgently, "The Leviathan is calling in reinforcements. A new wave of ships is coming in. Looks like Aegis-class heavy cruisers. They'll be here in moments." Carter's heart skipped a beat. The Aegis-class cruisers were formidable in battle, heavily armed and shielded. They could easily tip the balance back in the Empire's favor if given the chance. The human fleet was already stretched thin, and adding more firepower to the Empire's side could be disastrous. "Not if we strike first," Carter replied, his voice calm but resolute. "All ships, prepare for a counterattack. We're going to hit them before they hit us." The Phoenix's engines roared to life as the flagship moved into position. Carter's orders were clear. The humans had to take down the Leviathan and its reinforcements before they could rally and regroup. It was now or never. Suddenly, the battle space erupted in flashes of light as the Aegis-class cruisers appeared on the far side of the battlefield. They were massive, their sleek hulls glinting menacingly in the cold void of space. Their shields shimmered with energy, and their guns were primed for destruction. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned, but they still had the advantage of surprise. And for a brief moment, hope. "Deploy the Phoenix's drones," Carter ordered. A swarm of small, fast-moving drones shot out from the Phoenix like a cloud of angry bees, buzzing toward the incoming Aegis-class ships. The drones were equipped with EMP charges designed to disrupt the advanced sensors and weapon systems of the enemy cruisers. The first wave of drones hit their targets with precision, creating a temporary blind spot in the Aegis-class cruiser's defense. "We've got a window," Carter said. "Now's the time." The human fleet, including the Phoenix, surged forward, weapons charging. They unleashed a torrent of fire on the distracted cruisers, targeting weak points in the Aegis-class ship's armor. The Aegis-class ships retaliated immediately, returning fire with devastating accuracy. Plasma bolts and laser beams cut through the blackness, narrowly missing the human ships as they weaved and dodged. "Shields holding," reported Lieutenant Shaw. "But we can't take much more of this." "Keep them focused on us," Carter ordered. "The rest of the fleet, target the Leviathan." The Phoenix darted around the incoming fire as the other ships in the human fleet concentrated their firepower on the Leviathan. They could see the damage done to its once imposing shields. Now was their chance to finish what they had started. The Leviathan responded with renewed fury, its massive turrets firing with precision. The Empire's flagship was furious, retaliating fiercely to protect itself from the oncoming assault. The human ships moved in tight formation, dodging incoming blasts while firing on the Leviathan's exposed sections. But the Empire was not one to be outdone. With the Leviathan taking heavy hits, the Empire's retaliation came in the form of a devastating new weapon, the Dark Lance. The Dark Lance was a superweapon, capable of obliterating entire ships in a single blast. The weapon was now charging. "Captain, they're charging the Dark Lance," Shaw warned. "We need to move, now." Carter's heart raced. He had seen the Dark Lance in action before, and its destructive power was like nothing else in the galaxy. A single hit from that weapon could turn the tide of the entire battle in the Empire's favor. "Full speed ahead," Carter ordered. Target the Dark Lance generator. We have to take it out before they fire. The human ships surged forward, dodging the laser fire from the Aegis-class cruisers and focusing all their fire on the Leviathan's weak spot, the Dark Lance generator. The Leviathan fired its weapons in desperation, trying to stop the humans from reaching the generator. But it was too late. A well-placed shot from the Phoenix hit the Dark Lance generator, causing an explosion that shook the entire flagship. Sparks flew, and the Leviathan's systems began to fail. The Dark Lance was disabled, its energy core shutting down, rendering the weapon useless. Direct hit. Shaw cried out. They're disabled. The Leviathan is vulnerable. Carter let out a sigh of relief, but he knew the battle was far from over. The Empire's Aegis-class cruisers were still firing relentlessly, and their reinforcements were pouring in from every direction. But the humans weren't backing down. The fight had just begun. Press the attack, Carter said, his voice fierce. We finish this now. For Earth. The human fleet pushed forward, their resolve steeled. The battle was fierce, but Earth's defenders were not about to let the Empire conquer them. They would stand strong, no matter what came their way. The battle was still raging, but one thing was certain. The humans were not going to let the Empire win without a fight. The Empire's last gambit. The battle had reached its peak. The Leviathan was crippled, its dark superweapon rendered useless, but the Empire's fleet was far from defeated. The Aegis-class cruisers were relentless, their firepower overwhelming, pushing the humans to their limits. The human fleet was outnumbered, their ships taking heavy damage, but they refused to give in. Captain Jace Carter stood at the helm of the Phoenix, his face etched with determination as he surveyed the chaos unfolding in space. The Phoenix had suffered hits to its shields, but they held strong for now. Every decision, every move, every shot counted. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, rested on their shoulders. Lieutenant Shaw, what's the status on our reinforcements? Carter asked, his voice calm but filled with urgency. Shaw's fingers flew across the console. We're still waiting on the Tidebreaker's fleet. They're making their way here, but it'll take another few minutes for them to arrive. The Leviathan's crew has been making repairs, and they're launching a second wave of drones. Carter cursed under his breath. Every second they waited was another second the Empire gained ground. The Aegis-class cruisers were pushing the human fleet back, their precision strikes relentless. The humans had made their mark, but the battle was far from won. We can't wait any longer, Carter muttered, his eyes narrowing. He turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Alina Torres. Is the Phoenix still operational? Barely, Captain, Torres replied, her voice tight. We've sustained significant damage to the port side. Shields are holding, but I don't know how much longer they'll last. Then it's time to make the call, Carter said, his voice resolute. Get me the Tidebreaker fleet on a comms link. It's time for the final push. Shaw worked quickly, establishing the communication link with the Tidebreaker, which had been delayed in the outskirts of the battlefield. The Phoenix and its remaining ships would have to make a final stand to hold back the Empire until their reinforcements arrived. After a tense moment, the voice of Admiral Eve Langston, leader of the Tidebreaker fleet, crackled through the comms. Carter, this is Langston. We've arrived. What's the situation? We're holding on by a thread, Admiral, Carter said. The Aegis-class cruisers are tearing us apart. We need you to break through the Empire's flank and hit their weak spot. If we can draw them off, we can finish this. There was a brief silence before Langston replied. Understood. We'll hit them from the rear. Keep them distracted, Captain. We're coming in hot. Carter's pulse quickened as he looked at the battlefield. He could see the incoming reinforcements. The Tidebreaker fleet. The first signs of hope in what had been a brutal and near-fatal battle. But it wouldn't be easy. They still had to hold the line for as long as possible. Everyone, brace yourselves. Carter called to his crew. This is the final push. We've got one shot at this. for Earth. With renewed determination, the human fleet surged forward, weaving between the enemy fire. The Phoenix led the charge, its weapons blazing as it targeted the Aegis-class cruiser's weak points. The Tidebreaker fleet soon arrived, flanking the Empire's forces with deadly precision. The balance of power began to shift. The Empire's forces were caught off guard as the Tidebreaker ships tore through their ranks, devastating their flank. The Aegis-class cruisers that had once been so powerful now found themselves under fire from all sides. The Empire's ships began to falter, their movements more erratic as they tried to regroup. "Target the Leviathan," Carter ordered. "We end this here. Now." The Phoenix's cannons roared to life, and the human fleet focused all their fire on the crippled flagship of the Empire. The Leviathan's shields were down, and its engines were barely functional. The Empire's flagship was no longer a threat. It was a dying titan, trying desperately to survive. But the Empire wasn't finished yet. In a last-ditch effort, the Leviathan fired its remaining weapons at the human fleet, hoping for one final devastating blow. The energy beams ripped through the space around them, missing the Phoenix by inches as they dodged and weaved through the firestorm. Then, with a final, thunderous blast, the Phoenix's weapons struck true, hitting the Leviathan's core. There was a massive explosion, and the once proud flagship of the Empire was torn apart in a burst of light and fire. Direct hit. The Leviathan is down, Shaw cried, her voice filled with disbelief. The Empire's remaining ships began to retreat, their once formidable fleet now in disarray. The human fleet had done it. Against all odds, they had held their ground and won. Earth had stood firm, its defenders strong. Carter exhaled a long breath, his shoulders slumping in relief. "We did it," he said quietly. "We've won." But he knew that the Empire's defeat was only the beginning. The battle had cost them dearly, but Earth had proved that no matter how powerful the Empire was, they would never break the human spirit. As the remains of the Leviathan drifted through space, Carter looked out at the stars, knowing that Earth's place in the galaxy had forever changed. The fight for freedom and survival was far from over, but humanity had shown that they would not back down. They would always stand strong. For Earth, for humanity, for the galaxy. The final chapter of the battle had been written, but the future of the galaxy, that was still in their hands. The dawn of a new era. The aftermath of the battle had left the galaxy in a stunned silence. The remnants of the Empire's once mighty fleet drifted through the void, a shattered reminder of their failed conquest. The Phoenix and the remaining human ships hovered in space, their hulls battered and scarred, but their spirits unbroken. Earth had defied the odds, repelled the Empire, and emerged victorious. But the price had been steep. Captain Jace Carter stood at the command deck of the Phoenix, his eyes scanning the empty space where the Leviathan had once loomed. The shock of victory was slowly sinking in, but the weight of the battle was still heavy on his heart. They had won, but it hadn't come without sacrifice. Many good men and women had lost their lives, and the scars of war would remain on Earth's soldiers for years to come. "Captain, Earth is calling," Lieutenant Shaw said, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Carter nodded and gestured for her to connect the call. A holographic projection flickered to life, and the face of President Evelyn Hayes appeared before him. Her expression was somber but proud, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the victory they had just achieved. "Captain Carter," she began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion, "you and your fleet have done the impossible. Earth stands strong today, and the galaxy will never forget what we've done. But the war isn't over. The Empire will regroup, and we must be ready for what comes next." Carter straightened, his mind racing as the weight of Hayes' words settled in. "Understood, Madam President," he replied. "We'll do whatever it takes to protect Earth. But we've proven to the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated. We can stand against any threat, no matter how powerful." Hayes nodded, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Indeed, Captain. The galaxy knows now that Earth is not a planet to be conquered. It's a force to be reckoned with. I have no doubt that humanity will shape the future of this galaxy, for better or worse. It's our time now. As the communication ended, Carter stood silently, taking in the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The Leviathan was gone, the Empire in disarray, but the road ahead was uncertain. There were still pockets of resistance to deal with, and countless questions about the future of Earth's role in the galaxy. But one thing was certain. Earth had earned its place among the stars. "Captain," Torres said, stepping up beside him. "What now?" Carter turned to her, a determined glint in his eye. "Now we rebuild. We fortify our alliances, and we prepare for whatever the galaxy throws at us next. The fight may be over for now, but the war is far from finished. The galaxy is changing, and humanity will be at the forefront of that change." A new era had dawned, one where humanity would no longer cower in the shadows of galactic empires. They had proven themselves to be more than just survivors. They were warriors, capable of rewriting history with their resolve. Earth had stood firm against the Empire. And now, the galaxy would look to them not as a fledgling species, but as a power to be respected. As the Phoenix and its fleet drifted toward Earth, Carter looked out at the stars once more. The battle was over, but the journey was just beginning. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. They had stood strong, defied the odds, and shown the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. The universe had just witnessed the birth of a new power, and it would never be the same. For Earth, for humanity, for the galaxy, the future was in their hands.